Witnesses continue to expose grave human rights violation by Gambia's National Intelligence Agency. Egypt tops Africa's foreign direct investment despite effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. COVID-19 cases in the Gambia have significantly dropped. These and more coming on the world today. Welcome back. You're watching The World Today with me, Sohna Tunkara, and now the news in detail. As the Truth, Reconciliation and Reparations Commission's public hearings on the human rights violation by the National Intelligence Agency, more witnesses have come forward to testify. State intelligence operatives who worked directly under the former dictator Yahya Jammeh are accused of arbitrary arrests and detentions, tortured and enforced disappearance and extrajudicial killings. The ICC files in this report.
On Wednesday, Aissatou Kanye, the wife of the late Kanye Kanye, a then supporter of the opposition United Democratic Party, testified before the Third Commission about her late husband's unlawful arrest and subsequent disappearance. Aissatou narrated to the commission how Kaniba, also a former employee of the Christian Children's Fund, now known as Child Fund, was forced into a taxi by operatives of the National Intelligence Agency.
At his position.
So how many people came in that vehicle?
4 of them were there.
You've already explained who Camara was. You've explained the paramilitary. The extra 2, the driver and the other person, can you describe them if you can?
Ya fole Camara la kumo fole andu nkendu ndo men para ko men nkido jita yo fole fo mo fula dolu men do moto kono fo ye cross le ba.
Driver nyendo fo no la mo because wanji.
I cannot say much about the driver because he did not alight.
But imono do wojita le wo atofta le bara man teman jam fa bak.
But their companion alighted. He is tough, but not very tall. But Kamara is tall and tough.
The witness suffered psychological pains for several years after the enforced disappearance of her husband. Mrs. Kanye said Kanyeba's son, who was born after his father's enforced disappearance in 2006, has been asking about his whereabouts for 10 years.
When the issue became very clear to me was when there was a change of government. But before the change of the government,
Yahya Jammeh once pardoned some people, saying that he is going to pardon some people. That day, his younger brother went to Mile 2. Just to go and find out. But they looked in every nook and cranny in the whole prison. They cannot find him anywhere. After that, we didn't have or know anything about him again.
Until 2016, the Kanye family had no information as to whether their household head was alive or not until after the change of government. It is now 13 years since Kanyeba's enforced disappearance and the family has yet to find closure. In 2017, when the Barrow government announced it was releasing political prisoners, Mrs. Kanye had been to the gates of the country's notorious central prison, Mile 2, to look for her husband. But she returned home with the same despair she had lived with for more than a decade after she realized her husband was not among those who walked out of the prison. On October 28, Aissatou Kanye told the Third Commission that the former dictator was responsible for her husband's death. For iAfrica TV, I am Daisy Cisse.
From that report by Ndai Cisse, on Tuesday, President Adama Barrow embarked on what the State House said is a surprise tour of ongoing projects and facilities within the Greater Banjul area and beyond. His first stop was at the University of the Gambia Faraba campus, where he inspected ongoing construction works. More in this report.
Upon completion, the university campus in Faraba will accommodate the Faculty of Education, Information and Technology, Engineering, Business and Public Administration, and a virtual library. President Barrow said he is satisfied with the progress of the work being done, which, according to the consultant, will be completed by April 2021.
Maybe in 2021. You cannot develop your country without education. And the university have been here, but we cannot call it real because it doesn't have where it is centralized. If it is centralized, you have a lot of advantages. If it is centralized, you are more organized. It's more efficient, more reliable. You understand? And this is lifetime institution. This is lifetime buildings. That's why we never wanted to compromise quality.
The president then proceeded to the $20 million renovation project of the Banjul International Airport, which is in its finishing stages. The improvements will enable the airport to handle an increase in the number of passengers, which will benefit the country's important tourism industry.
I have been monitoring it at a distance through my minister, but I think they say seeing is believing. I think it's a revolution. The airport have changed completely. It is just the frame that was here, but everything have been postmortem. The capacity have increased by 200%. In some areas, it have increased 300%. And looking at the environment, it's more conducive now. First time, it was a house. Now, it's an airport. And the gadgets they are using is world standard. Security and all other gadgets are all world standard. And I think everything that is meant for an international airport is now in this airport.
On his visit to the Ndembai COVID-19 treatment center in Bakau, Barrow told journalists that he is impressed by the level of development at the center and the fight against COVID-19 in the country.
So now I think the Ministry of Health and all the partners, I think we are now prepared to fight COVID. We pray that COVID is over in the Gambia, but you never know what is going to happen. But I'm really impressed and I am pleased and I have a peace of mind that we have space now, whatever in eventualities that happen, definitely.
The president appeals for concerted efforts from all Gambians towards national development. He also reaffirms his government's commitment to the completion of the ongoing projects. For iAfrica TV, Sohna Tunkara.
The president on Tuesday embarked on a visit to ongoing construction sites. Now, the European countries are providing the hatchway for Nigerian Ngozi Okonjo as the next Director General of the World Trade Organization as they back her candidacy. Ngozi Okonjo faces competition from Yoo Won-hee, South Korea's trade minister, for the position. However, Ngozi is receiving support from the majority of EU member states, leaving Yoo Won-hee facing an uphill struggle. Ngozi is an economist and served as the finance minister in Nigeria during the former President Goodluck Jonathan's regime in 2011. She subsequently served as Foreign Affairs Minister from 2003 to 2006. Now, earlier on, my colleague Amadou Conte spoke to Anna Van Deski, a journalist and a political commentator on the line to Brussels, rather.
Is the European countries backing the candidacy of Ngozi Okonjo as the next Director General of the World Trade Organization?
It's absolutely excellent. And Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is, of course, it became the preferable candidates of the Europeans, not only because of her personal qualities, but because of the context. Because President of the European Council, Charles Michel, personally invested himself in promoting her candidacy because he said that there were many promises made to Africa since 2001 when Doha round wasn't really concluded. So they had a certain declaration which made many promises, which contains many promises to Africa to make trade with Africa much more fair than we see today. But in almost 20 years, these promises of Doha round were never concluded. And that's why there is, if you wish, we can say is a moral obligation of the world towards Africa and of WTO towards African countries, towards developing countries, to conclude this Doha round and make a step towards developing countries. And that's why the candidacy of Nigerian Dr. Okonjo-Iweala was chosen, because both candidates were absolutely excellent. Okay. And also we have to underline that she knows from her very negative experience in Nigeria what is corruption and what are the faults of this system, which steals actually future from Africans, because her mother, as you remember, was kidnapped against ransom. So she knows how dangerous corruption is when she was a minister, and she supported 2 presidents in Africa. Okay. And she was successful as finance minister, and also she served as Minister of Foreign Affairs. So she collected absolutely outstanding qualities in her own country, but also working in the United States. And I would like to underline that she's a very cosmopolitan character, and Dr. Okonjo-Iweala is also the citizen of the United States.
Anna, if I can come in there now, Anna, as you were just trying to explain, how tight is the race to lead the World Trade Organization, with the United States said to be backing the other candidate, that is of course, that is Yovung?
Well, I think that now it's extremely difficult task, but because COVID played a very negative role in the development, it pulled all of us back. And that's why in her interview, she said, Dr. Okonjo-Iweala said very interesting things. She said that there are plenty of very high-level experts in WTO, but what the organization needed is its political will to move forward and to implement what was promised from developed countries to the developing countries on Doha round. And that's why she is making a promise. She promotes herself as an absolute outsider. She never worked for WTO, but she promised to push forward and fulfill the promises which were made last 20 years before she enters this organization. And of course, it's a tremendous chance, which should underline it, and that also it is a woman as a head. It's the first time she is a woman heading such a representative and important and influential international organization.
All right. Now, both candidates have reputable track records and experience on issues related to trade and multilateral diplomacy. But why do you think member states may end up selecting her? And of course, that's Ngozi, but and why?
Well, of course, because Europe has very special relation with Africa. You know that Africa is a strategic partner of the European Union, and that's why the first visit of Ursula von der Leyen, a new president of the European Commission, was to Africa, and she shook hands. Then it was possible before the sanitary rules we have now. She went to Africa and she had a meeting with African Union, because there are 2 powerful unions in the world, the European Union and African Union, which unite these nations that need each other to make humanity succeed. And that's why, because Africa is a young continent, it's a vibrant continent, and Europe is aging, as you know, so we need each other to succeed as humanity. And that's why it was underlined on many occasions by many European leaders that without the success of Africa, there is no success of European Union. And that's why this candidacy of Okonjo-Iweala is so precious to Europe, because we see in her also the future of Europe.
Anna van Deske, a journalist and political commentator from Brussels. Once again, many thanks for your time.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right.
From that, onto the Gambia's latest COVID-19 update, the country has recorded 6 new COVID-19 recoveries, taking the total number of recoveries in the country to 2,666. 90 new laboratory test results were received from the Medical Research Council and Nation's Public Health Laboratory, in which no test returned inconclusive. The National COVID-19 Situation Report released by the Ministry of Health indicated that no new COVID-19 related deaths were recorded, and the total number of deaths remained at 119 since the confirmation of the first case in March this year. With 1 new case registered, the total number of confirmed cases in the country is now 3,666. No one has been newly taken into quarantine and no new discharges were made from quarantine facilities, according to the Ministry of Health. The country currently has 4 people in quarantine, 881 active cases, and a crude case fatality ratio of 3.2%. From that, we will go with a short commercial break and continue with the rest of our stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still watching The World Today, and now to the rest of our stories. Egypt's domestic and foreign investment continue to gain momentum despite the economic challenges brought by the COVID-19 global pandemic. Since in 2017, the North African nation has been leading the continent's foreign direct investment, according to the World Bank International Debt Statistics Report. The economic reforms outlined by the Egyptian government has critically helped improve investment in the country, experts say. Details in this report.
Foreign direct investments are an important source of income for any government. The inflows create job opportunities, pump foreign currency into the country, add to tax revenue, and enable production goods for local and international markets. The World Bank International Statistics Debt Report shows that Egypt has topped Africa in FDIs since 2017, with an increase of 16% year-on-year in 2019-2020.
There are constant variables that attract investors, like a strong market of over 100 million people with high purchasing power, a good location on 2 seas with easy access for trade and shipments. Lately, the added value is a successful economic reform program that led to stability and withstood challenges like a global recession caused by the coronavirus.
In spite of the COVID-19 outbreak this year, investments kept flowing in. Receipts grew by 11% to surpass $10 billion, while conversely, it contracted by 13% across the continent. Experts say government policies have played a major role in keeping FDIs intact.
The aggressive economic reforms that started in 2016 till 2019 were critical. The financial policies have led to the stability in the Egyptian currency and the foreign exchange markets, which was important for the investor confidence. Secondly, changing laws to facilitate investments in oil and gas and establishing demarcation agreements with Cyprus and Greece in the East Mediterranean and Saudi Arabia in the Red Sea, while setting up proper infrastructure to encourage more business in this sector.
Naturally, oil and gas is leading FDIs in Egypt this year so far, followed by telecommunications and the retail business. However, there are still challenges that hinder many investors from opening shop in the North African nation, mainly the slow and complicated bureaucratic process in spite of the improvements applied to it. If these hurdles are removed, analysts predict higher investment inflows, especially in the industrial sector.
Egyptian businesses continue to gain momentum despite the challenges brought about COVID-19. Now in South Africa, the use of online businesses is significantly increasing since the movement of people were limited thanks to the coronavirus global pandemic. Millions of South Africans have joined an online shopping app that allows them to do business through use of technology. The government's decision to impose lockdown measures to curtail the spread of the virus had forced many people to switch to online platforms to buy their goods. More in this report.
Slower in their online activity compared to some countries in Africa and in the West. But online behavior made a dramatic shift this year as COVID-19 forced a hard lockdown.
We've seen what we're calling a once-in-a-generation shift to e-commerce and online sales. South Africa has always been a relatively small market when it comes to e-commerce, roughly 1% of online sales. We've seen that almost double now in the space of less than 12 months.
Shoprite Checkers launched 6060 just before the virus arrived in South Africa. The online shopping app now has over 5 million users, and these customers signed up in the last 12 months.
The real underlying factor is that people discovered the convenience of online retail during lockdown. So once you make your first online grocery order, for example, and it arrives and you get what you wanted, and you realize just how convenient it is, how quick it is, and how much it reduces the complexity of your life, then suddenly you become hooked.
South Africa is in no way lacking technology and innovation, but trust created a lag in customer take-up.
The only challenge that you sit with is somebody trusting a payment gateway that will not steal the banking details. And then you get to the rural areas where that is still going to take a bit of time because it's education one, infrastructure secondly, and if you look at rural areas, it's a cash-based system.
The hard lockdown and social distancing measures forced many to set aside their fears and shop online.
The lockdown has actually lifted the thought process of small and medium entrepreneurs. Let me put things on a platform where it opens borders without being there physically.
When the lockdown was announced, there's an entire generation now that wanted to try online shopping for the first time. So we've seen, for example, more than 20% of 6060 shoppers are actually older than 50. We have over 100 people that are over 80 that are using the app on a weekly basis.
Rand Merchant Bank estimates e-commerce in South Africa will be worth around $14 billion in just 5 years.
Well, that was all in the world today with me, Sahna Tunkara. Gambia 24 is up next with Ibrahim John. But you can also watch our programs on www.iafrica.tv. Until then, good evening.